Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Inventing Construction. I'm Ross Griffin, and today we have a very special guest, Andrew Langridge. Is that right, Andrew? Did I pronounce that right? I always make a mess of everybody's name. The subtopics for today are how does Sterling support carbon QSs and value for money? How well has the industry adapted to carbon sustainability LCA? What are the challenges that Andrew has faced and is facing? And what is Andrew's advice to listeners out there around carbon and LCA? But let's not delay. Andrew, introduce yourself, please, to our listeners and a little bit about yourself, your past, your present, and why you're sitting in front of me here today.
So I actually lived not too far from where we're recording this. Yeah. So when I was born and bred down here, I did an apprenticeship, a mechanical engineering apprenticeship, 4-year apprenticeship, which took me on my journey to become really fascinated by estimating, by the forecasting, by the guesstimation of what the future might look like. And so since I did my apprenticeship, then I ran a factory for a while. I was a factory manager for electronics factory. So that was quite challenging, quite different. And then I got very interested in computerized manufacturing. Okay. And then I ended up working for software companies and ended up bringing software estimation to the marketplace.
Excellent.
So that's me. I'm also a visiting professor at the University of Bath, where we train the next generation of QSs and estimators. Yeah. And we're in a transdisciplinary team. So we sit across School of Architecture and Construction and the School of Mechanical Engineering.
Excellent. We were talking about that recently, actually, the value in cross-disciplinary teams and the need for collaboration and et cetera. Yeah.
And we get some interesting questions from the maths departments, and the psychology departments. The psychology of estimating is fascinating. So the university is fantastic. They've been very kind to me. They've been very, because I'm not an academic. Yeah. I'm an industrial person who's dipped a foot in academia. So I wouldn't claim to be an academic by any. I'm a director at Sterling, and we've been writing a brand new software for the last 4 years. We started just before COVID, with a list of what we didn't want it to do, not a list of what we wanted it to do. Yeah. And it did a soft launch a couple of years ago, and then we've done a formal hard launch. Okay. And we're making really good market share. So.
And tell me, what is Sterling then? What's the specialization around the platform or the software?
Sterling, we wrote it to do 3 things, to address 3 really emerging problems. Yeah. One was it's built for browser. It's not a desktop app. There is no desktop app.
No.
There's nowhere to plug it in and walk off with your laptop. No. Okay, so it's built for browser, which gives a lot of freedom to make it communicative. So it's truly collaborative. We can plug it into just about anywhere where there's a common element of data. It's got to have a column element of data, or there's no need to plug the 2 together. But as long as there's some commonality between the outcomes you're trying to achieve, like planning and cost, or cost and schedule, you can plug the 2 systems together. Risk comes in very nicely. Okay. So it's very collaborative. And it brings together, in the first new commercial tool, cost and carbon are treated equally. Okay. We don't distinguish. Yeah. When we talk cost, we mean carbon. When we talk carbon, we mean cost. We don't have this distinction between the 2. It's a dual currency system.
There's a big transition happening at the moment in relation to carbon. What you're seeing is a lot of these specialist consultancies focusing on carbon and LCA, and we've been talking about this for the last year or more, I guess, at this stage, saying how really the carbon process, the LCA process, is a calculation process. It's the same as the cost process. The basis of information is the same. It's quantum, right? The quantum is coming from the same place. And then you have a calculation, 2 separate currencies with 2 separate outputs. Mm-hmm. But it's really the quantity surveyor that's the best placed and best positioned to take on this responsibility for carbon and LCA calculations. At least that's our opinion. So what we're seeing, what we're predicting, is that these specialist LCA and carbon consultants actually will die away, because it will be taken up by your traditional quantity surveying practices. I don't know, are you seeing anything like that happen in the industry, or what's your opinion on that?
Okay, so this is my opinion rather than a Sterling opinion. Yeah, okay, sure, so this is my opinion. Yeah. But I think the big companies have tried to make carbon complex. Yeah. I think they've overcomplicated the whole story. Yeah. There's a muddle in between what ESG is. Yeah. So QSs don't do ESG. No. We do Scope 3, hardcore construction carbon. Yeah. Okay. And what does that mean? What does that rely on? Relies on exactly what you said. Relies on quantum. I need to quantify what I'm doing. Who are the best people to quantify things? So QS, let's call them QSs or estimators. Let's not, because actually they're the same thing. But people who are used to quantify. Just yesterday, I was talking to a really smart company, very smart lady in a company, who says, my sustainability team have been trained to go and find alternative solutions, and all they're doing is learning to measure. She said, I've got a team of people that measure who don't know about sustainability, don't need to know. They need to know what they're doing, but they don't need to know, right, if I've got this kind of material, I can go and replace it with this, and I can go speak to the engineers, and I can speak to the aesthetics people. She said, my sustainability team are doing spreadsheets, not doing their job. And when I suggested to her that actually the people that are doing the estimates for cost should do it, she's like, that's what I've been saying. So,
because it makes sense, right? Again, it's the specialization behind it. And I think that from a carbon perspective, you're like from a cost perspective, you have to have the input of the architect and the engineer. They have to be also the expert when it comes to sustainability and alternative materials and solutions. That's their role and responsibility. But when it comes to costing it, when it comes to carboning it, let that be the QS's responsibility and work collaboratively.
I'm kind of trying to change. I'm trying to change the perspective on that. Our role, our job as QSs is to shine a very big spotlight where we think their trouble is. Now, that trouble could be you've over-engineered it, it's too expensive, there's data missing where, I can't estimate this because I've not got this much scopes missing or whatever. We're there to shine a big torch on it. We're there to be the experts in understanding the quantum and understanding the bigness, the size of something. And then obviously the rates and everything else is a multiplication of that. So we're not there to solve the sustainability problem. We're there to highlight where the challenges are. That's our job.
That's absolutely correct. In collaboration with the design team, of course, the design team have to come up with the solutions within the cost and carbon budget that has been set, but again, collaboratively in order to be able to work together to pick the right solution for the right project at the right time, etc.
And we're not, I see too many papers written and on, we're not doing net zero carbon well enough. We're not. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
No, and we won't be for a number of years yet. We're not there yet.
But I'm also seeing people say, well, if you can't tell me what the cost differential is between let's call it a normal building and my Save the Planet building, I can't invest in you. We've got green investors that say, if you can evidence to me that this is value for money, whilst value for sustainability, value for the environment, I will give you better rates. No one's doing that.
No.
Why not? Because they're either black or white. It's like lowest cost or lowest carbon. No, that's not how it works.
Because lowest cost based on CapEx really, and carbon needs to be calculated over a life cycle of the building rather than just a capital investment of it, right? So, and this becomes the challenge because in order for green finance to invest more CapEx within the building, they need to understand how the building reacts over the next 50, 60 years, depending on what country you're in, when that building is going to strand in relation to carbon. How much more investment will be needed? Is that in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years? And what that entire business case looks like. And that's the challenge. We're not doing that yet. We're looking at that capital investment with our old, cheapest price, largest return on investment for the capital investment hat on, and that's where the challenge lies.
I would be really happy, Ross. I'll be honestly really happy if we were doing that properly. We're not doing that. I'm very, very lucky. I've got a bit of a reputation for this stuff, and people ask me my opinion. And people are not even doing the capital carbon properly yet.
Really?
They're just not. It's just not. When you look at it, it's high level guesses that, and most people, if I'm being honest, they're going for the biggest carbon block they can because then they're only going to be better than. Well, that's good for now. I mean, to be honest,
overestimating basically.
But you got to treat cost and carbon with equivalence. You would never overcost a building just on the offside that you can bring it in cheaper, right? You'd never win the project.
No, you'd never win it exactly.
So you need to.
And the same principle.
But I was also we also support So Sterling support an academic access program. So any university running a reasonable course around QSing, around estimating, around construction engineering can have our software free of charge.
Yeah.
I mean, completely free of charge. But some of the students are smarter than us. So we were talking about per year carbon value for a building. And, I said, off you go and work it out. Go and see what you can do. And we were in 2 minutes, one guy went, I've done it.
Yeah.
So you can't.
You couldn't have done it.
You haven't. You haven't. But I'm really fascinated that you think you have.
Yeah.
What have you done? He went, well, you said the building life was 60 years. I've just made it 80. I said, it's that simple thinking. We're thinking too.
It's generational. We were talking about this about a year ago, I think, in relation to investment in historical buildings. Old Georgian quarters, for example. And we're using these business models of 20-year, 25-year return on investment. That's not possible within Old Georgian. You need to have generational investment here for business cases to work. So why not just move the dial? It might not be in your lifetime you'll see the return, but in the next lifetime for someone or next generation,
And I think if you look at the green investment firms, the high-level finance firms, that is their thoughts as well. Yeah. We need to build well, and we need to be able to repurpose. Yeah. So if the building goes up for this purpose, in a generation of 25 years' time, we need to be able to repurpose that building without losing the substantial fabric of the building. We need to be able to repurpose to get another life and another life. Yeah. You wouldn't build an infrastructure project to last 25 years.
No.
You've got to be looking at 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years.
Exactly.
You wouldn't build a nuclear reactor for 25 years. Yeah. So we should do exactly what you said. Yeah. You're right. Where is the life cycle? Yeah. So CapEx is good. Yeah. We can do that. Yeah. We need the rest of it. And there is a framework for that. It's an ISO framework for doing it. Can't remember the number of it off the top of my head. But and we follow in Sterling, we follow that framework for the costing, and we've mapped into that the carbon reporting and generation. So when you do your life cycle costing, you get your carbon at the same level. Yeah.
And that's what you need, because what we talk about is the cost of carbon from a component basis, where you look at hotspotting for carbon, let's just say the volumetrics, the concretes, the steels and so on. You want to understand what that cost component is. So when you do begin to value engineer from a sustainability perspective, you want to understand what your cost differential is, whether it's an addition or an omission when you change materiality or whatever. Yeah. At the moment, what's happening, we've two different tracks.
Doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. No. But I think that will change in the next year, couple of years. I think it's going to change dramatically.
I've been saying that for 5 years.
Yeah,
I'm saying next year it'll be good. Yeah. Next year it'll be good. I'm worried. I think the subcontract industry, the specialists, they will take the lead from the clients. Yeah, and the clients are still not demanding. Some of them are asking, but they're not. It's not like no one says just build me that building, don't give me a cost.
Yeah.
But they're still saying, build that building, don't give me a carbon.
Yeah. At the moment, it's just a calculation for the likes of LEED certification and so on. All you need to do is a calculation. You don't necessarily need to manage carbon. And maybe that's the challenge clients are facing at the moment. They don't know how to approach it. And carbon is just a currency. It's something you need to procure.
Yep.
You need to procure it. And clients don't know how to procure it. And they're getting advice from consultants that are sustainability consultants, not procurement and contractual.
Yeah.
And again, I'm back to the quantity surveyor. That's the skill set. So our advice to clients is just change the word. You know how to procure cost. Just take out cost, put in carbon. The process is identical. Yeah. It's identical.
Or just add the word carbon.
Yeah, carbon plus cost.
For me, that would be the best thing. Would be just add the word carbon to whatever you do in any contract you want. Cost and carbon. Yeah. It's simple. Yeah. And the other model people get in is this ESG thing. Yeah. So let's say we've got a greenfield site, there's nothing there. We're going to go and build something amazing. That's scope 3 carbon. We're going to build that. We need to measure all the quantum. We measure that. When we hand it over, that becomes ESG for whoever owns it.
Whoever owns the building, and whoever's rents the building or leases the building, or has some.
They own that problem. Yeah. So it's understanding. I see people saying we're net zero because we've done our ESG. ESG is not the same. And there is one really good example of a company that claimed to be net zero, but they they ring-fenced all their projects and said that's not in this.
Yeah.
Well, then it's easy to be net zero. Sorry, I mean,
just don't put any project into it and you can be net zero, right?
Right.
Ignore your entire business. And
Absolutely.
where you go,
But my head office is net zero. And
it's greenwashing,
I try really hard not to use that term, but you're right. I can't argue.
It is. It's viral in the industry at the moment, I would say. How well do you reckon, we talked a little bit about it, we discussed a bit of how well the industry has adapted over the last number of years when it comes to carbon. I know you're saying the last 4 years you've been saying that it's going to come together, but personally I think it's a long road, it's a slow journey. A lot of the decisions sit with the client. The clients generally are kind of last to the room, if you like, in terms of the value that this can create, because like BIM and digitization, the contractors grabbed it first because they could see the real value in standardization and process-orientated digitization, if you like, and grabbing that value and putting it in their pocket and going, this is what we're going to do. And often it's the clients who need to make the decision, but they're kind of last at the table. What's your experience over the last number of years?
As a whole, if you look at the whole take-up, it's been marginal. I don't think we can claim any success. Wish we could. We have some absolute pillars of amazing stuff. So there are people out there doing amazing stuff, but generally it's pretty poor. Who would I see to change that? It's such a difficult topic because no client wants to spend more money than they have to. They are definitely still, finance is definitely still money orientated because it's finance, right? Let's not be unfair to them.
Return on investment. The business cases are still the same and the methodology is still the same as assessment.
But the government should be, the government set the targets for carbon and yet they've cried off actually doing anything, even in their own placement of contracts.
Really,
it's advised, I think, unless it might have changed in the last year. But
it's like BIM level 2 type of strategy. Let's put something in place, but it's advisory. It's not mandatory. It's not legislated, and it's not policed, if you like.
And what's happened? I would say we have 3D takeoff and 2D takeoff in our package. And everyone ticks the box for 3D. Happy days, BIM models. 90% are using 2D models to take off.
Really?
Absolutely. Maybe some of the smarter ones aren't, but most people are using 2D.
That's our experience as well. I think the narrative for us in Ireland has changed a little bit in the last 12 months, I would say, particularly in the last kind of 6 or 7 months. We have this new Capital Works framework requirements around BIM and LCA and ICMS. And that's kind of stirred things up a little bit. And what we're noticing is it's the public authorities that are really beginning to ask questions. How are we going to procure this? And that's super interesting for us in the Irish market. In the Danish market, I would say that kind of it's been a requirement to do LCA for the last number of years. I think initially it started in 2016. I think, though, where the challenge for the Danes is around that management of carbon, not necessarily the LCA calculation, because they're getting quantum out. They're using their standard LCA platform, LCA book, and it's a very much a task-orientated LCA. But the management and strategy around LCA and the connectivity to finance and the cost of carbon is all missing because that skill set is missing in the industry. So you've kind of two different kind of interesting industries and countries here, one really progressing in sustainability but lacking the component around quantity surveying, one that's now beginning to bubble a little bit, but the quantity surveyors haven't kind of jumped on this opportunity yet. They're beginning to now open their eyes because they can see it in the tender material coming out from government and so on.
I don't know much about the Danish, but we are working with the Office of Government Procurement in Ireland. And we are working very hard with them to help them understand the challenges for people trying to adopt what they're trying to do is brilliant. I have to say, it's one of the best I've seen. And they haven't let perfect spoil the good. It's good. They know it's going to have to be.
It's an evolution, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But they've still got the same problem that people are kicking back and they don't want to do it.
No.
And they think the challenge is this. The subcontractors think it's expensive, right? If you do it if you do what you're saying, and I agree, if your QS, when he's doing his cost, gets his carbon, it costs no more.
No, exactly.
And we get a productivity gain. So we haven't got to go out to a specialist.
Yeah.
And we're not going to try and solve the sustainability problem. We're there to go, we have a sustainability problem.
Yeah.
Go and find someone
Let's
to fix
figure
that.
this out.
Yeah. So that's. But yeah, Ireland, I think the leadership there has been quite good.
Yeah.
No, very good, and they are trying their best.
I think from the sustainability and certainly from a government perspective, that implementation of those requirements have been quite bold, albeit from a bin perspective, they've been a long time coming.
Yeah.
So we have a bit of a journey to be on. But I think you mentioned something there about that productivity gain on cost and carbon because of that singularity in quantum. The same can be said for digital quantity takeoff, 3D quantity takeoff. The gains you have, not in the initial not in that initial task of taking off the quantity, but every time you need to do a revision, an update, etc., the time you gain and the quality you gain is exponential. And I think if combining those, that digital cost and carbon trifecta, like Sterling are trying to solve, will be a huge gain for any company taking it up.
But I think also we as estimators or QSs, we are too. I'm just going to sound really weird. We're too focused on our problem. Okay. We are too focused on our problem. We can't live as estimators with non-integrated tool sets anymore. Okay. Forget the tools now. Put the tools to one side. We need an integrated data set. So we moan about the architects and engineering technicians not giving us the data we need in BIM. But no one goes and speaks to them.
No.
Right?
No.
So, hey, you want that? We can give it to you, but no one told us. We do a lot of work in our estimates and in our quantum. But we could carry additional data that would make it easy for downstream, like risk people or we don't, because we're so focused on our task. The platforms we're working with now, there was 2 or 3 people out there bringing together platforms, capital platforms, which says, never mind the tool set. We'll find you a tool set that will work, that will be adequate. If you have to waste 5 more minutes doing your takeoff, but I get a 25-minute saving downstream, you're going to take the hit. I'm sorry, you're going to take the hit. Yes, you might be slower in your first one. But other things like once you've, in Sterling, again, I can only point to Sterling. In Sterling, once you've done your allocation of quantum to the cost line items, carbon line items, when you get a new model, before you measure anything, it says, you've changed the model. All these objects have changed. Indicatively, this is what the cost and carbon's happened before you measure anything. And one of our clients has said that for them was the reason to buy it. Because now they can go back to the client and go, got your new architect's drawing. We haven't measured it, but I'm telling you, this is the indicative numbers. Do you want us to measure it? Because that's cost to you, sir. And that's one of their go-to-market things is we're different. We're changing. We may lose productivity for estimates, but we may gain value through the value chain, through the stakeholder chain. Will be amazing.
The principle is the same of that kind of single point of information. The 3D model, a little bit more effort in terms of quality of information has a huge gain for all other stakeholders right down the value chain along the project lifecycle.
But unless we're helping those people understand what we need in terms of data hereditary, we need to inherit data from them in this format. If we don't tell them that, sorry, you cannot blame them.
No.
You cannot blame them.
It's like ordering a taxi, going outside, waiting for it, but actually not really ordering it, hoping it'd turn up, and it doesn't,
And when it doesn't turn up, go, well, you knew I needed to go.
Exactly,
Well, actually, I didn't know. No, I love that analogy. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use
and this is the biggest issue that we have with QSs at the moment. And it's a legacy thing, because as QSs, we'd always sit waiting for information and design to deliver to us. Then we have our period of time of analysis and RFI and review sheets, etc. And we get this long period to do estimates and bills of quantities and so on. And we go back to the design team. So traditionally, we don't really engage well with the design team. What we do is we come back retrospectively telling them you have a problem. You messed up here when you were designing this over the last 6 months because you've gone over budget. So now you need to change your facade, or you need to change your total area building, whatever the case may be. So we become kind of this negative impact on projects rather than the positive.
We're the incredible no men.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
We say no. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
But my experience is not just in construction. So my experience is in mechanical engineering, manufacturing. And I know people go, "Oh, it's not the same." No, it's not the same.
No.
They have far different problems than we have, and we have far different problems than they have. But two things are true. Exactly what you just said. I like what you said. When we moved our estimating team from procurement into design and engineering, half of our problems went away. Like not 20% of our problems, half of our problems went away. When we moved the guys who understood manufacturing, the guys who understood construction and how they needed data and how it would look, once we moved them into the design team, so we had, multi-talented design teams, we had less churn, we had less problems. You didn't get all the way through certification to, no, can't do that.
Can't do it,
That's going to be, if you could just change this, it would be really easy to make. We literally moved them into design.
And a very simple thing that our approach in Cosmos is that integrated approach where we're communicating with the design teams on that weekly, kind of bi-weekly basis. You're uploading your unfederated part of your model architecture. Oh, we're going to download that and have a look at that in whatever system we use, whether it's Costex, Libre, or Sterling in the future, perhaps. But we're validating that information in the way we want to use the information. Not in the way the design team think that we want to use it, but in the way we want to use it. So we go back and say, oh, can we change this? Can we change that? So you're having this micro-analysis right along the entire process, which might be 3 to 6 months. So by the time you get to the end, the impact you're going to have on design is actually very small because you've already done the work. And actually you've built a relationship with the design team that it's much more collaborative now, that actually they'll ring you after a meeting going, geez, Ross, I think we have an issue here. We might have to increase this or reduce that, or I think we've under-designed this component. And so you're getting the information much quicker than waiting for that in period to go like the no man and come back and say, no, we can't do it. You need to value engineer.
But there's some really,
cost reduce.
really, really solid research, really good research. And the papers are still out there on the internet that show you your costs are baked in the first 20% of your design time, not the first 50% of your design. If you are not hitting them with good ideas, positivity, you end up fighting marginally at the gains. You're fighting for marginal gains then, and then you are the incredible no man. No, you can't have that. It's too expensive. You can't.
And the thing about it is some of the discussions we were having in Denmark is if you're in early, the projects will never go ahead because maybe the budget or the cost is right. And we're going, but if we're in early, we can help you design something that will be fantastic on budget to the client's expectation. And what you're getting is you're also getting a better deal as a design team, because you don't need to redesign. You're not spending hours and hours burning at changing facade solutions, changing layouts, et cetera, and your team are having a much better experience on the project, because in reality, your output is affected by whether you can deliver on budget or not. That's the reality of it. And often you don't find it till you go to tender or go to market and everybody goes, oh my God, what happened? And so the entire culture of that project is affected. And so there's a lot of the social aspect of it and the much softer approaches or possibilities.
I just think it takes the pressure off people, because as design goes down that maturity chain, the pressure to meet this deadline just becomes intense, and people make mistakes and they take shortcuts. Whereas if we could shift the whole, what we're doing, if we move the estimating into design, we're actually buying time. We're not buying anything else. We're not going to be clever or smarter. We're just buying time. We're moving our problems forward in time so we can fix them. And we have all this time we've saved to fix them.
Put it into value and quality.
Absolutely.
And so on.
Value engineering is the big thing. Absolutely. No, I think you're right.
We talked a bit about the challenges, but what kind of challenges have you faced or are you facing at the moment within the industry when it comes to, it could be either Sterling or the cost and carbon approach?
Sterling's a bit out there because we don't have a desktop tool.
Yeah.
It frightens people. It scares people to bits. And we are a SaaS product. So what does that mean? But that means you have to do nothing. You pay us your money on day one, and on day two, you can start using the product. Okay. Normally we have to do a bit of data load, a bit of configuration, but you don't have to get your IT people involved. There's no servers to set up. There's no desktops to upgrade. You can downgrade your desktops. We don't need any.
The onboarding
graphic
process.
card that is really small. And that scares people because they say, how can that be possible?
Yeah.
Well, it's possible because you're sharing that service capability with a group of other people. It's fine. They don't understand SaaS yet.
Yeah.
The second thing is people don't like SaaS. For us, for estimators, it's a challenging thing. If you're a larger company, you cannot afford to have a proper, what I would call a basic SaaS model running, where every year, every week, every month, whatever it is, we upgrade your software without you knowing. SaaS is we keep it evergreen. So we don't run that for bigger clients, for clients that can afford it. So clients that have made a significant investment. We give them a production environment which is sacrosanct, and then we keep their sandpit evergreen. Well, this is what I call SaaS plus common sense. Because in the middle of a bid, I do not want some IT jockey updating my system. Right? So it's SaaS plus common sense. So that's the first thing we try and explain to people. It's don't worry, we're not going to just update your software. Please trust us. We're not going to do that. If you're a larger company, single tenanted environment, this is what you're going to get. Pay a little bit more for it, but now you've got what you want.
I'm very surprised that people are still working locally off desktops and laptops and stuff rather than cloud-based solutions. I thought we've all transitioned to that.
No, but you need to blame, I'm sorry to say that, you need to blame people of my age. So most of the managers of estimating teams now are towards the end of their career, let's say, getting grey hairs or no hairs, depending on where they go. They don't want to change. So I've got young kids coming out of university that have used, tools like Sterling. They go into Fred Blogs and Co's, and they're using something that was built in the 1980s. And they're like, "What is this?" We don't allow us. Estimating is really important. QS is really important. To throw a stone into QS when it's working well. To throw a stone in there and change is. You have to be a brave person to do that without good reason. Well, we have good reason. We have cost. We have to bring carbon in. Efficiency. Efficiency.
The efficiency of it all. Like we always work. Everything we have is cloud-based, actually. And one of our policies is you never save anything on your desktop or your laptop. Absolutely no way. OneDrive and it's synced to the cloud, so we can always and that standard folder structure, ISO standard, and so on is super important. Otherwise, if Jimmy gets sick, John can jump in and go, okay, I know what phase of the project they're in. I know what document to look at. I can see this. I can chat to the team, and it kind of becomes a little bit more fluid, if you like. But the idea that you're walking around with your entire knowledge base in your laptop, in your bag, or on your backpack, to me is bonkers.
But people don't trust things that are not on their desktop. That's the challenge we've got, is that we don't train our. So we've got really good estimating managers out there. I can tell you 10 off the top of my head. Really, really, they could estimate anything from the back of a fag packet and be really good. But they've never trained themselves. They don't care about IT. Or IT is that foreign stuff over there done by those weirdos. No, you need to understand. You need to understand how you're going to leverage IT to do exactly what you just said, to protect yourselves. It's about protecting the data set. The knowledge is in the data. I find it very strange.
And I was just looking at the phone. I was thinking to myself, but we carry around a device that is fully cloud-based. All, depending on what phone you have, all your pictures, all your messaging, all your history, emailing, everything is cloud-based. So there's a huge contradiction then when you go into your office and you go, no, I don't want cloud-based. I prefer it on my desktop where it's locally.
We lost an opportunity recently to a really nice company, nice people. Showed them the software, they loved it. The young lads in the department were gagging for something different, but the manager said, "I can't use it." He said, I'm retiring in 3 years' time, and I don't want to use a new system."
It take them 3 years to get up and running on new systems like that. It's not something you can turn on overnight and away you go. It's no matter how simple it is.
It just wouldn't change. And the young kids are like, here, we'll lose those kids now. They're in their 30s. They want to go somewhere that's invested in them, that's invested in their future, not someone who's just clinging to the past. It's a shame. The other thing we see is that people, we're seeing change to collaboration. We cannot live in these little silos. So I do my bit of work, I chuck it over the fence to you. You do your bit of work, chuck it over the fence to me. Can't live like that. Sterling is fully collaborative. If I'm the client, I can grant, and I have an enterprise license, I can grant all of my supply chain access, free access to the system. I can decide as the client how much access they get and what they get access to. But if you're the next one down, if you're then running a bunch of specialist contractors, you can get them to bid inside the system.
Yeah.
You can do your compare inside the system, prepare all that information to go into procurement. We're not awarding, we're not doing any of that. We're doing all the pre-contract stuff inside the system. It's revolutionary, absolutely revolutionary. I mean, it's a productivity saver that you would never see anywhere else.
You mentioned that there was a challenge that we're focusing on the short term, the capex, rather than the whole life cycle. How do we kind of change the mindset around that? How do we shift people's ideas that it's not just about capex anymore? It's about whole life cycle and it's about longevity rather than that short period return on investment.
That's a real challenge because our whole economy is written around short-term gain. Yeah. So we need to get finance to buy into the fact that we have longer-term ambitions to be green. And that takes more time to get that payback on the sustainability. So we have to come from finance. We have to do that. We have to understand that, our Victorian forebearers, they built to last. We've got to take a little bit of that mindset. As I said before, build the structure strong enough to be, but make sure it's flexible that we can become repurposing.
There's a cost associated with flexibility as well, but nevertheless, if you are shifting the end of life from a 50 to an 80 year, well, then the investment might be worth it, but that analysis needs to be carried out by someone.
Yeah, and you must, I can't say it too often, you've got to look at the carbon and cost per year of the life of the whole thing. Amortize your capital into that life cycle cost. And if you can do anything to extend the life or to reduce the through life carbon, that's a valuable investment up front. And sometimes we've got to hope that investors see the long term and push them that way.
I think they are. Green financing is going to change.
It's going to be great. Yeah, I wrote a paper on green financing last year. So that's good.
Super. If you have a link to it, we'll put it on the bottom of the podcast for everybody to.
It's part of the zero construct playbook.
Tell me, just on our last point in our last few minutes, what would be your advice to any listeners out there looking to get involved in kind of carbon, or what would be the first approach? I guess estimators from you is obviously
QS is estimate. Yeah. You got to be curious. You got to stop looking at what you know and start looking at what you don't know. Start following the people talking about carbon and get some education. So we give free education on carbon. I'm sure you would do the same if people really wanted to, but you could provide education, free or not, it doesn't matter. You could provide education. Get educated. Yeah. Start being curious about how it all links together. Put away your fears. It's just quantum.
It's just quantum. From an estimating perspective or quantity surveying perspective, this is your bread and butter.
It's what you do. It's what you know. There's just a new field that says embodied carbon for A1 to A5, and then all the Bs and the Cs. But we can explain that to you. It's not a challenge. It's purely, cost. Yeah,
I was explaining to someone recently that the cost part of estimating quantity surveying has evolved over the years because it's such an old profession. Back in the day, we would have costed in the same level of granularity we're costing carbon in now. You would have costed in your water and your cements, and some of the specialist suppliers, subcontractors still do this. Of course, they have to first principles on their approach, and that's what we're doing in carbon now. But over time, we'll be able to amalgamate that first principle into a carbon price, and we'll become knowledgeable on that carbon price for the different material. The EPDs will tell you this eventually, but right now we're in a level of granularity that if you're not in the estimating field or the quantity surveying field is super complex. But for us, I think as QSs or estimators, it's our bread and butter. It's what we're educated in.
The one amazing thing that we need to do is we need to get unit rates for carbon equivalent to our cost. We have to do that. We've been begging people to do it. Even the ACOSD, or it's now called the Controls and Skills Authority, offered to be the white knight and take all the data and do it all for everybody. No one's interested. They're not interested. In sterling, if you calculate in sterling your carbon, and it rolls it up, so you get your unit costs.
That will be your rate library eventually.
Eventually, that will become. So you do 4 or 5 projects, and you can then do some benchmarking, and then you can see, oh yeah, so my low bound is this, my upper bound is this, and my kind of in the middle, whatever you want. It's not in the middle, shouldn't be, but my most likely is this. Now I've got a 3-point estimate for my carbon, which matches my cost. Yeah. Okay, so if we let sustainability people do the unit cost, it will never match.
No. It's volumes that they're all. Everything needs to be converted to volume, and it's calculated on volume, whereas our method of measurement and units of measure differ depending on the assembly or the component that we talk about. So it's that time I think is quite interesting, but I think it is up for the QSs and the young estimators out there to go. Actually,
the last thing is this: you cannot just pick up an EPD and use it.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a company in Ireland that have some beautiful EPDs. Yeah. I mean, they are well put together, very easy to read. Yeah. Brickwork, blockwork. It's all blockwork, bricks and blocks. But all of their EPDs are in meters cubed.
Yeah.
When did you ever estimate a wall in meters cubed?
A block wall in meters cubed.
In meters cubed. It ain't going to happen, right? Yeah. So what we've also got is a little course we teach for QSs, how to look at it. So we've a QS in Northern Ireland that's really good at this already. Yeah. They'll take the EPD and they'll put in, let's say blockwork, because it's an easy one. Yeah. They'll say, okay, I'm going to do per meter squared of blocks. Yeah. And then convert the EPD for that. But I also want to use the same EPD, same blocks, per 500 bricks.
Okay,
Okay, now I've got taken the EPD and I've put it into 2 measures that I might want to use.
Might want to use,
Okay. In that particular EPD, there's 12 different products. So now I've got 24 measures, estimating measures. So you can't just pick up an EPD and use it. And when you look at some of the other products out there, they're all volume-based.
Yeah.
And if you want to try and do retrofit stuff, you get, I've got 4 meters, 4 cubic meters of insulation. Well, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Because I need linear meters for insulation, right? I need. So I think that the thing is learn curiosity. Let the young kids have their head. Okay, if you're
a manager inside, just let them go.
If you're a manager, do your job, which is to manage. Okay, and find young, keen things and turn them into scope detectives. Let them go and become more than they are. You will benefit because they will value you more, and they will deliver hugely because they're so into the environment, they're so into everything. That would be my advice. Get curious.
Yeah, I think there's a big shift coming in this. It is slow. Don't get me wrong. We're talking about over the next kind of 5 to 10 years, but I can see it coming, and the way people are now beginning to grab onto it is interesting. But if we keep it the basis of it as estimating and quantity surveying, I think there will be a success at the end of it.
And don't make the generation of unit carbon rates a competitive thing. Let's collaborate. Yeah. Let's find someone who will be the honest broker, and so like EC3 is amazing. If EC3 would then allow us to report back in proper carbon unit rates, or even the ACOS-D or the RICS or somebody, but then don't charge people for that. Yeah. That's what I'm seeing at the moment. So that there's a couple of companies that have collected all this data up, and then they're selling it back to you.
Yeah.
But it's not competitive data. Yeah. It's data we need to be sustainable.
Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Andrew, and thank you for coming on Inventing Construction.
I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a great conversation. Thank you.
We'll collaborate in the future again, perhaps, by the sounds of things.
I hope so.
Thanks very much for listening. There's a LinkedIn link below in the show notes. We would love to connect with you.
We hope you enjoyed it and have you with us in the next one. Thank you very much.